Okay, today's daf is daf Kuf Chaf Dalid. It's a very long daf. We're going to go through it as quickly as we can get through it with understanding properly. We're going to start with 4 lines from the bottom of Kuf Chaf Gimel Amud Bet. These are real basic issues relating to muktzah. Okay, and it'll help if you use the sheet to help organize what's going on here today. So we're starting with Amar Rabbi Elazar. If you remember, we finished yesterday with this issue that Nehemiah started the whole issue of muktzah, and he decided to be super machmir about muktzah. Everything, almost even a klisham lachto leheter, was going to be forbidden, unless, right, and he said, we're going to start off forbidding everything because people weren't keeping Shabbat very well. Then slowly they started being matir, more things and more things and more things. So as time goes on, this is also going to be forbidden. This is also going to be, permitted. This is also going to be permitted, until they permitted a lot more things. There was a machloket Abai and Rava about what exactly became permitted. And today we're going to see again a machloket Rava and Rava about what exactly is allowed within the laws of muktzah, which items you can move for which reasons. Remember, just to review, we have our basic concepts. A kli shemelachto leheter, a utensil that's used for permitted purposes. We have a kli shemelachto leisur, which is a utensil that's generally used for forbidden purposes. And then the question is, can it be used for certain things? And then we have, first of all, we didn't talk about this today particularly, but we'll get to also, what if it's not even a kli? That's the worst. That's why we always talk about rocks and things that aren't even called a kli. They're not utensils. Those are even the worst because those don't even have a purpose at all. But then, then you get to kli shemelachto leisur, which has a use, but it's a forbidden use. Then we get to kli shemelachto leheter, which has a use, but maybe, according to some, it can only be used for its particular use. That's we saw Rabbi Nehemiah has that unique approach, that one can only use a utensil on Shabbat for what its designated purpose is, even if it's a kli shemelachto leheter. Okay, and then there's categories of how can you use these items. Can you use them litzorach gufo, which means you want to use the item, but for some other purpose, like we talked about taking a mallet to crack open a nut, or litzorach makomo, you need the space, it's on your table, you want to clear off your table so that you can have the space, or you want to sit down and there's something in your way. And then there's mechama letzel, which is to protect it. If something's wrong with it's in the sun and you want to move it, or someone might steal it. We're going to see that today. And then there's the fourth, which is for no purpose whatsoever. And it seems like if you have no reason to move this, you're actually not allowed to move it on Shabbat, even if it is the most allowed item, right? It's something we can clearly generally use, like a fork, but you're just moving it for absolutely no reason. That would be a problem. Obviously, you have to wonder, we said yesterday, right? Why on earth would you be moving something if not for some reason? I was thinking, what's a good example? If you fidget. You like to fidget, right? So you need something in your hand. That you would probably say is for a purpose because you need it to fidget with. So even that you might think isn't a purpose, it is a purpose. So I don't know why you'd be moving it for no reason whatsoever, just because you're bored and you want to, I know. But again, if you're bored and you're just doing it stam, maybe there's a reason for it. Okay, let's get moving with our Gemara because we have a lot to cover. Amar Rabbi Elazar, kanim umaklot, gulustira umeducha. These are 4 mishnayot, cases that appear in 4 different mishnayot. Kulan kodem hatarat kelim nishnu. They're going to say that all these mishnayot that we're going to see, according to Rabbi Elazar, were all stated within the time frame where all this stuff was forbidden, which means before they allowed all sorts of things, which means he's basically saying these 4 mishnayot are not lahalacha because they're talking about a time period in history where everything was forbidden before they came along and exempted all these things. Remember, Nehemiah forbade everything. Over time, things became permitted. Seems a little bit strange. The question is, when exactly these things were permitted? Were they permitted, you would have thought, between Nehemiah, which is Ezra and Nehemiah, when we came back after Shivat Zion, the first Beit HaMikdash, to the time of the Gemara, till the time of the Mishnah, a long time passed. We would have assumed that the Heterim happened before the time of the Mishnah. But Rabbi Elazar is claiming, no, these Heterim happened really after these Mishnayot were taught. So there's a bit of an issue with that, but we'll leave that aside. So he says, here are the 4 mishnayot. Let's go through. Kanim, ditnan, lo sidora kanim velo nitilatan dochet Shabbat. In the shulchan that sat in the Beit HaMikdash, in the temple, there were these the shulchan was used for the 12 loaves, the showbread, and they put these rods in between, these golden rods, in order to separate so that the breads didn't get moldy, because the bread sat there for a whole week and they wanted to aerate. So they left space in between. They put these rods in. Now, when you take out the breads, you have to take out the rods and then put them back in. On Shabbat, they would switch the breads. So the Mishnah says, the kanim, you can't do the siddur kanim, you can't take them out on Shabbat. Okay, now this is a big question, because normally, okay, so let's start. Let's explain it, then I'll raise the question. What he's saying is, before Shabbat, take out the rods. After Shabbat, put them back in. And when you set the bread up and when you take it off, it's going to have no rods there, because you're not allowed to move the rods. Now, the rods are klisha melachto lehetel. It's a permitted purpose. There's nothing wrong. They don't do any isur, anything forbidden. So comes Rabbi Elazar and he says clearly the fact that we view these as muktzah is because it's a klisha melachto lehetel. You can't move them. And that goes with the original gzeirah, that even a klisha melachto leheter could not be moved. So comes Rabbi Elazar and he says this was all before the heter. Obviously, after the heter, he says you can move them. There's a big question here, which Tosfot gets into, and the whole Gefet this week is all about this. If you look on the site, there's a shiur up about this topic. And the issue is, there's a general concept that ein shvut b'mikdash, meaning there's no isurei de Rabbanan. Anything rabbinic in nature is ignored in the mikdash. Because of the mikdash, okay, and there's a whole question about why. They get into it in Gefet this week. Basically, theoretically, if it's muktzah, it should be allowed because it's the Beit HaMikdash. So Tosfot says, there's a machloka Rashi. Tosfot here, I'll just read you Tosfot quickly, and you can learn that, you can listen to that shiur if you're interested in more. Tosfot says, even though there's no shvut b'mikdash, sometimes there's shvuts in the mikdash. And when they saw a reason to be gozer, they thought that maybe this would lead people to something else, they did forbid, okay? And there's a big question, and Yael Shimoni there in Gefet gets into a really interesting topic about how much do we have to worry in the mikdash, that people are going to sin or not. Maybe the mikdash is a holy place, doesn't have the same concerns. Anyway, okay, you can look there for more. It's both written and audio, so if you prefer one or the other. Okay, let's move on. That's the first Mishnah. The second one, maklot takin chalakin hayusham. Okay, now another thing is, when they did we talked a few days ago about the Korban Pesach, they had to take off the hide of the animal. Remember, if it happened on Shabbat, they could only do it to the chazeh or maybe the whole thing. Anyway, they had these maklot takin chalakin. They were smooth and thin. And what would they do? They would basically put a pole on, let's say, my shoulder and on your shoulder, and it would extend from one to the other, and they would kind of hang on our shoulders. They would hang the animal hanging off that rod, and they would then flay the animal. What if it came out on Shabbat? So, and what's the problem? Well, maybe you can't carry the makel on Shabbat, it's muktzah. Again, what is this? A klisha melachto lehetel. Theoretically, you should be able to carry it, but if you need it, l'tzorach gufo. But that's what Rabbi Elazar says. This was all before the gzeirah, when even a klisha melachto leheter couldn't be used. So what would you do on Shabbat when you can't use that rod? Miniach yado al katef chavero v'yad chavero al ktefo v'toleh u'mafshit. So we use our arms instead. I extend my arm to your shoulder, your arm to my shoulder, and then we hang the animal on our arms. Okay, you would imagine it's kind of complicated how they would do that. It wasn't clear to me, by the way, if the person who's holding their arm out, are they also doing the hafshatah, or does a third person come and do the hafshatah? I hope it's a third person, because the thought of having one arm extended in the air and the other trying to take off the hide seems to me a little complicated. But anyway, the issue here is muktzah, and they say it must be before the gzeirah. Glustera, the third case is ditnan, neger, sheyesh berosho glustera. If you have a bolt in your door, and the end of the bolt has a rounded, thick space, which Rashi says could be used, for example, to grind garlics or something. But anyway, you have this glustera, this neger with a glustera. Rabbi Yoshua omer shomtam min petach ze v'toleh b'chavero b'Shabbat. Let's say you want to use that bolt in your friend's door. Now, the bolt is not a part of the door, so it's not an issue of it's not an issue of what do I want to say? It's not an issue of building, putting this bolt in your door. It's not an issue of building. It's something temporary. So you can move it from your house to someone else's house. The question is, are you allowed to move it at all? So Rabbi Yoshua says, well, you can't move it directly. You can only do it indirectly. You can drag it on the floor. This is what we call tiltul min hatzad. Remember, we talked about that before with pulling out the thing from the ground and the dirt moves to the side. So this is what we call tiltul min hatzad. So if you want to get it to your friends and use it, you can only do that if you drag it. So what do you see here? Rabbi Yoshua doesn't allow you to carry it in a normal way. So it must be, again, we're going to say this is plisha melachto leheter. You're just moving it to use as a bolt in your door, which is allowed. And yet he's not allowing it in a typical manner. Rabbi Tarfon actually disagrees. He says, Hareu kachol kelim umetaltel b'chatzer. There's no problem. It's like any clean. You could carry it in your courtyard without a problem in a regular manner. He doesn't have an issue with it, but Rabbi Yoshua does. So again, we're back to Rabbi Elazar, who said this is before they made all the heterim, because again, all these are klisha melachto leheter. Next case, miducha. This hadamaram. We don't even need to go back there. That was the mortar that we wanted to move. Remember, they said if the garlic's still in there, you can move it. If it's out of there, then you can't move it anymore. And again, it was all a debate about what case it was talking about, but here we're assuming it's talking about to move l'tzorech mekomo. Let's say you need the space and you're not allowed to, or even mechama letzel, or no, right? This is a little bit different because it is a klisha melachto isur, but again, it's something you could use to hold items in, and still we're going to say it's usur. So he's going to claim right now that it's melachto, that it's only because before the gzera, and after the gzera, this would actually be allowed. So Amar Rabba. Rabba says against Rabbi Elazar, you think these four are before the heter. Mimai. I can explain that all these mishnayot are after the heter. Why? So I will go one by one. Each is going to have a reason, and most of them it's going to be because there's really no purpose. Remember we said, even if it's melachto leheter, it has to be for a purpose. If there's no purpose in moving it, then it shouldn't be allowed in any case. So here he says, Kanim, taimamai mishumi apushe. What's the reason why we have these rods there? It's so that it doesn't spoil. It doesn't get moldy. Bahai porta lo me'apesh. But what's the idea? The idea is that the bread sits there for 7 days. If it's just going to sit there from, remember, they move them on Shabbat. So the ones from last week are just going to be there for a short time till you remove them. They're not going to get moldy in that short time period. And then when you put the new ones in, well, they're also not going to be there for very long. They're not going to get moldy within such a short amount of time. Therefore, the rods are not necessary. And since they're not necessary, therefore, we don't allow you to move them. Second, maklot. Efshar Rabbi Elazar. Since you can. Now, again, I think it's a little complicated, but since you can, you have to imagine they must have been in good shape to be able to hold their arms for a very long time like that while they did it. But since there's a solution, a different way to do it, therefore, the maklot become, using the rods is unnecessary. Again, it's a case of unnecessary. It's interesting because I don't think we would have defined unnecessary as there's a different solution, or it's right. These are still necessary, but Rabba's trying to come up with some explanation. So this is what he says. Glustra, and again, I think what's bothering him is he thinks that for sure by the time these Amoraim lived, it was already a heter, right? We weren't in the stage of Nehemiah at that point. Next one. Glustra, Kid Rabbi Yanai, Da'amar Rabbi Yanai. We're actually going to say the homachloka between Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Tarfon had to do with something else. What was the issue here? Rabbi Yanai says this was the chatzer she'ena mu'revet askinan. They were talking about a courtyard where there was no eruv. Rabbi Yoshua savar tocha petach kilifnim dami b'kamital tamana debatim b'chatzer. How do we view the bolt? Where's the bolt? Is it in the house or is it out of the house? Well, in fact, it's right in between. It's in the doorpost. So the question is, how do we view a doorpost? Is a doorpost like your courtyard, or is a doorpost considered inside your house? So Rabbi Yoshua says it's considered inside your house. And therefore, you can't take something, if there's no eruv in the courtyard, you're not allowed to take something from your house into the courtyard. You can only do it if you do it with a shinoi, if you drag it. By dragging it, it's okay, but not directly. Remember, a chatzer is not like a Reshut HaRabim. It's a place where there were a few families that shared one chatzer. So it's not forbidden entirely, but it's also not permitted in a normal manner. Rabbi Tarfon savar tocha petach kelechutz dami. We view the entranceway like the outside. It's more like a semi-public space. And therefore, mana de chatzer b'chatzer kamatalta, you're allowed to carry, even if there's no eruv, if something was in your courtyard before Shabbat, you're allowed to carry it within the courtyard. Miducha, here we're going to explain, like we kept explaining yesterday, we keep giving different interpretations to this case. Rabbi Nechemia, we can just simply say this follows Rabbi Nechemia's opinion, who says that you can only move a kli for its own purpose. And the Miducha, we're clearly moving for a different purpose. We're not using it as a mortar to grind things because it's Shabbat. So therefore, it's Rabbi Nechemia, and it's not the generally accepted opinion. And that's all those are resolved according to Rabbah, and you don't have to say that all these were before the heter. Okay, new Mishnah. Kol hakelim nitalim litzorech v'shelo litzorech. Okay, this is a little tricky because what did I tell you until now? Litzorech means for a purpose, and shelo litzorech is for no purpose. And here the Mishnah says we can move something for a purpose and not for any purpose. Now that seems weird because we already said you can't move it for no purpose. So we're going to have to explain what shelo litzorech means. And it clearly doesn't mean shelo litzorech at all. Okay. Rabbi Nechemia Omer, Eini talim ela litzorech. Rabbi Nechemia says you can only carry it for its purpose, okay, which we know already, he means its real purpose and not for any other purpose. But now we're going to have to explain what's litzorech and what's shelo litzorech, and we're going to have a machloket, Rabba and Rava. Okay, Rabba with a hey, Rabba with an aleph. Rabba is the generation right before Rava, and they learned together, but he was a generation above him. Now we're going to learn the machloket between them. My litzorech u my shelo litzorech. Amar Rabba. Litzorech davar shemalachto leheter, litzorech gufo. Litzorech means take a davar shemalachto leheter. It's generally used for permitted purposes. And you want to use it, what's litzorech? Litzorech gufo. Again, this is good review of everything we keep saying. And again, we're going to split into two different approaches here. He says, litzorech means for itself, meaning you need to use it for a use, not for the space, but for a use. So like the nutcracker, or the mallet to crack the nuts. Shelo litzorech is davar shemalachto leheter. In other words, again, the Mishnah is saying any kli shemalachto leheter can be moved litzorech gufo, and shelo litzorech, which means litzorech mekomo. If you need the space where the kli is, you want to sit down and it's in your way, you can move it. And now, even though the Mishnah doesn't say this, he's now adding. Just so you know, davar shemalachto leisur, if you have a kli that's generally used for forbidden purposes, litzorech gufo in, litzorech mekomo lo. But a davar shemalachto leisur, if it's generally used for forbidden purposes, then you can only move it for if you need the item for something, like to crack the nuts, but not if you want the space. Okay, this is not what we paskin. This is Rabba. Rabba is going to disagree with this, but this is what he says. Va'ata Rabbi Nechemia lemeimar, and what is Rabbi Nechemia coming to say? Afilu davar shemalachto leheter, even if it's a permitted utensil, a utensil used for permitted purposes on Shabbat, litzorech gufo in, litzorech mekomo lo. Rabbi Nechemia says you cannot use it if you need the space. You can only move it litzorech gufo. Amar le Rava. Rava says, what are you talking about? Litzorech mekomo shelo litzorech karitle? You're saying for no purpose means because you need the space? That's a purpose. That's litzorech. Think about the word, the definition of it's called litzorech mekomo. You need the space. That is a need. You can't call that not a need. So therefore, Elam Ravi, he understands shelo litzorech is something else. Litzorech is davar shemalachto leheter bein tzorech gufo bein litzorech mekomo. This we saw yesterday. These two go hand in hand according to Rava. Remember, there was a machlokes Rava Abaye last time. So also he thinks they go hand in hand. And therefore, litzorech means any purpose. You need the space or you need the item. Shelo litzorech means afilu mechama letzel. You don't have a need for it, but you want to protect it from getting ruined. V'davar shemalachto leisur. Now again, he adds. So what would be if it's for forbidden purposes? So again, according to him, and this is what we paskin, davar shemalachto leheter, you can move whether you need the item, you need the space, or you want to protect the item. That's what it means. It can be moved litzorech or shelo litzorech. Davar shemalachto leisur. Litzorech gufo, litzorech mekomo im, mechama litzelo. If you're just protecting it, you can't move it. But for the other reasons, you can. Va'ata Rabbi Nechemia lemeimar, Rabbi Nechemia comes along to say, afilu davar shemalachto leheter, litzorech gufo, litzorech mekomo in. Here he jumps one notch, right? He says, you can move it. Remember, Rabba said you can't move it litzorech mekomo. Rava says you can move it litzorech mekomo also, and obviously litzorech gufo, but mechama litzelo. But you can't move it to protect it. Okay, he doesn't think you can move even a permitted item for protecting it purposes. Yativ Rav Safra, Rav Acha bar Huna, Rav Huna bar Chanina, the three of them sat. The Yatvei v'ka'amrei l'Rabba, and they sat and they said to Rabba, Aliba to Rabbi Nechemia, according to you, you say according to Rabbi Nechemia, you can't move things l'tzorach mekamo. So hani ka'arot hechem mitaltalinan. How can we move? How can you clear off dishes on Shabbat? Okay, you're just moving them for the space. Amar lu Rav Safra, midi d'havei agraf shari'i. It's like moving something that's disgusting, right? Like that. Like the pot, what's it called? A pot that they used for collecting the feces. So a chamber pot. So the chamber pot can be moved because, right, it's disgusting. Likewise, your dirty dishes can be moved because they're disgusting. Amalei Abai leRabba. Abai says to Rabba, Lamara libid Rabbi Nechemia, Hani karot hechem mitzaltalin anu. Abai says to Rabba the exact same question. He says, according to you, Rabbi Nechemia, how can he allow, right? According to Rabbi Nechemia, how does he allow you to clear dishes? Amar lehu. Rav Safra Chavrin Tirgama. He says, Rav Safra, my friend, already answered this. Why are you asking me this question? They already answered this question. Right? It's just like the chamber pot. Now Abai asks a question against Rava. Miducha, again, we keep going back to this miducha. The miducha, yesh vashum metaltalinota. V'imlav ein metaltalinota. So what do you see here? You can't move it. Sounds like, again, it all depends. It doesn't tell us why. Even l'tzorach mekamo, let's say you need the space, you can't move it. And Rava said, a klish malachto lisor can be moved if you need the space. So hachabamayaskina mechama letzel. So he answers, it must be that they wanted to move this miducha, this mortar, because they wanted to protect it. And that's going to be forbidden. Eitive, and again, they're going to bring the next one about the pesel. Vishavin shim kitzev ala basar shasur l'taltalo. If you already chopped up the meat on it, at that point you can no longer move it. Hachanami mechama letzel. Again, he'll answer, oh, that's just mechama letzel, not because you need the space. Now he's going to bring a question on both opinions. V'haditnan ein somchim taktera bebikat v'chein bedelet on Yom Tov. Now on Yom Tov, wood can be used on Yom Tov. It's klish melachto leheter, although we'll see maybe it's not a kli. We'll get back to that soon. But it's something you can use on Yom Tov because you can make a fire to cook your food, because cooking is allowed on Yom Tov. So let's say you have wood chips and you want to use them to prop up a pot or prop up a door or something. You have some other use for it, not its typical use, but you have some use. So here it says in the Mishnah, you're not allowed to do that. Now that seems strange. To be Yom Tov, according to everybody, this is going to be a problem because the bikat is davar shemalachto leheteru. Alma, right? And it's a klish shemalachto leheter, and therefore davar shemalachto leheter bein tzorach gufo bein tzorach makomo asur. Seems like you can't move it, whether it's l'tzorach gufo, which is the case, and obviously then l'tzorach makomo. Sounds like from the Mishnah it's a problem. So what do they answer? Hata my taima. They say this fascinating line, which is going to cause a bit of a stir, which is, since wood chips are muktzah on Shabbat, we're not going to, now we'll let you use your wood chips on Yom Tov if you're making a fire, but we don't want you to use them to prop up your pot or your door because you might come to do that on Shabbat also. And on Shabbat, they're obviously muktzah because you can't make a fire on Shabbat. So now the Gemara says, maybe you would say to prop it up on Shabbat would be allowed. Why? It's a klisha melachto, right? It's davar melachto liisor litzorach gufo litzorach makomo share. That's a classic case of taking something that's forbidden and you're using it for permitted purposes. It should be allowed. That's tzorach gufo, propping up a pot. So you want to say it's forbidden on Yom Tov because of Shabbat, but Shabbat itself it shouldn't even be forbidden. So what do they answer? This is a big important line. This is what I said in the beginning of class, which is wood chips are not a kli. They're not defined as a utensil. That's why if you notice, by the way, they keep using it. Sometimes a kli shemalachto lisor, sometimes they say davar, a thing. It's a thing. It's an item, but it's not a kli. A kli is usually something that serves a purpose. It can be used as, you can put something in it. Wood chips are just wood chips. Yes, they can be used to burn a fire. Some people say they're not a kli because they're not actually used for anything other than burning. Some people say because you burn them, they ultimately get destroyed. So they're not, you don't call that a kli because they, when you use them for their purpose, they disappear basically. So therefore they say, this is not even a kli. When it's a kli, shemelachto liisor, then we can allow it, l'tzorach gufo makomo. This isn't even defined as a utensil though. It's more in the category of the rocks and things like that, which don't really have a purpose. Now, it's kind of in between. But because of that, we won't allow it on Shabbat. And since we don't allow it on Shabbat, we don't allow it on Yom Tov. Now we're going to see, is that really true, that we make a gzerah of Yom Tov atu Shabbat? So now the Gemara says, Umi gazrinan, do we really make this gzerah? V'hatnan, doesn't it say, Mishilim perot, there's a Mishnah in Beitza. You're allowed to take, if you have stuff drying on your roof, and all of a sudden you see it's going to rain, right? This is classic with us. We don't usually put out fruits to dry, but we do put out laundry, and all of a sudden you see it's going to rain, you want to bring it inside. So there's an issue. It's unclear exactly what the issue is, and we'll get to this more when we get to Beitza, but it seems like it's a tircha for you. It's work for you to start taking all your fruits and bringing them inside, and therefore we don't allow you to do it on Shabbat or Yom Tov. But what do we allow on Yom Tov? Since it's Yom Tov and not Shabbat, we allow you to do it derech aruba. You can put it through your skylight. You have a skylight like a hole in the roof. You basically throw it down. You don't touch it, you kind of just throw it down there. It's not a lot of work. You're allowed to do it in that way, but only on Yom Tov, not on Shabbat. So what do you see? Right? Be Yom Tov, aval lo b'Shabbat. So if you want to say in general, we're gozer Yom Tov atu Shabbat, then if it's forbidden on Shabbat, it should be forbidden on Yom Tov also. So what do they answer? Now they kind of answer with a flip question. Umi lo gazrinan. What do you mean we don't make a gzerah Yom Tov atu Shabbat? Don't we know it says in another Mishnah, and this is a Megillah, the only difference between Yom Tov and Shabbat is ochal nefesh, meaning everything else is forbidden on Yom Tov. Only things for food, but anything else is forbidden because, again, Zera atu Yom Tov atu Shabbat. So, in other words, really, it's in the same level of holiness as Shabbat, other than this one ochal nefesh. So, Amar Rav Yosef, we're going to have two resolutions to this contradiction. So now, we brought this as a question. Do we really make a Gzerah Yom Tov atu Shabbat? But now we're up on a tangent of a question, which is, there seems to be a contradiction between these two Mishnayot, and how do we resolve it? So Amar Rav Yosef lo kashya, ha Rabbi Eliezer, ha Rabbi Yoshua, Tanya, and now we're going to have a good review of a sugya we saw a few days ago. It's forbidden to slaughter an animal and its daughter and the son of the animal in the same day, and therefore, if you come across two animals that fell into a pit on Yom Tov, and theoretically you can only slaughter one of them, are you allowed to only save one of them, or can you save both of them? Tanya, Otovet beno shenaflu labor, Rabbi Eliezer omer malet harishon manat l'shochto v'shochto. You can take only one out, and you can slaughter it. V'asheni oselo parnasa b'mkomo b'shvil shelo yamut. The other one you can keep alive by giving it food in the bore, okay, in the pit, but you can't take it out. Now, what do you see here? Rabbi Eliezer, it's the same thing. You're going to have a hefsed. You might lose this animal. It's true, you can feed the animal, but theoretically, you're kind of leaving it there. And likewise, your fruit, you're leaving it there. So, according to Ben Yom Tov the Shabbat, we have to be as machmir on Yom Tov as we are on Shabbat, and therefore it seems like you wouldn't be allowed to take these fruits. That must be Rabbi Eliezer's approach. And Rabbi Yoshua Omer, no, you can, okay, because of a hefsed, we're going to allow it. Likewise, in this case, because of a hefsed, we'll allow it. What is his solution? You take out the first one as if you're going to slaughter it, but eno shochto, you can decide, I don't want to slaughter it. Uma'alim, and then you can do this trickery kind of thing. Uma'alet hasheni, and then you say, oh, yeah, I changed my mind, I want the one inside. You could take out the one inside, and in that way, he allows you to save them both. Ratzah zeh shochet, ratzah zeh shochet. And in the end, you can then decide whichever one you want to slaughter. Mimai. So now they say, wait, this isn't necessarily comparable. Dilma al kan lo kamar, and it's the same thing we said a few days ago. Maybe there, lo kamar Eliezer hatam eladef shar lefarnasa. There, it's not really a hefsed because you have a solution. You can give the animal food in the bore. You can survive the day. But if it was really going to be a hefsed, like the fruits, we would allow it. And then maybe Rabbi Eliezer does hold like that Mishnah about the payroll. Then, and also, Inami, you could also say, Ad Kanlo Kama Rabbi Yoshua Hatam de Efshar Baharama. There, he has a way of using this halachic loophole. But when there is no way of doing harama, maybe he'd say no, and then he wouldn't agree that you could do the fruits. So therefore, you can't say that's the reason. El amar papa lo kashya habet shamai habet hillel. We can say maybe one opinion holds that one source holds like Beit Hillel, one source holds like Beit Shammai. By the way, as soon as you do that, I'm just going to point out the one that holds like Beit Shammai, we're now going to say is not lahalacha because we don't hold like Beit Shammai. That's a big deal to do that. But anyway, let's just say one's Beit Hillel, one's Beit Shammai, Ditnan. Now, where's the machloka Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel? Beit Shammai, Omrim, this is an interesting shita. I don't know if you're familiar with it. We all know that you can carry on Yom Tov. You don't need an Eruv. You're allowed to carry on Yom Tov without an Eruv. Beit Shammai, though, doesn't agree. Beit Shammai says, Ein motzi'in et hakatam ve'et halulav ve'et sefer Torah l'reshut harabim. You can't take out. Now, these are even things that are needed for the holiday. a child. Okay, well, I don't know if it's, right, you obviously want to take out your child. You can't carry. Or a lulav, even if you need it for the mitzvah, or a sefer Torah. You can't take them out into the public domain on Yom Tov. The only things you're allowed to carry according to Beit Shammai is ochel nefesh. Oh, well, this perfectly matches. Ein bein Yom Tov l'Shabbat ela ochel nefesh bilvad. Ubeit Hillel matirim, Beit Hillel allow it. So if Beit Hillel allow that, they'll allow the Meshilim Peirot. And then again, we're going to say, right, then go back to our issue about this Gzera Yom Tov Atu Shabbat. So now we're going to say, so first they're going to say, wait a minute. If you want to take this one step farther and say that Beit Shammai is the one who says we're going to be Gozer Yom Tov Atu Shabbat, well then, and then by the way, this whole thing, right, then you'd have to say, when we said, right, it all started with this line, Ein somchim et hakdera bebikat, right? That halacha is going to be Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai holds we're going to be Gozer Yom Tov Atu Shabbat, and then it's not la halacha either. And not only that, but they're going to say, if you want to say that's Beit Shammai, Imar deshamali le Beit Shammai hotza'ah tiltul mishamat. But if Beit Shammai is machmir when it comes to hotza'ah is halacha deoraita. We could see why one might be more machmir and say we're going to be gozer so that you don't come to do it on Shabbat. But tiltul, which is only derabbanan, they're going to be machmir on tiltul also. So here comes the line that we quoted yesterday. V'tiltul gufe lav mishum hotza'ahi. Isn't tiltul so that you don't come to carry? Again, that's certainly how the Ravid understood this line. Right? This line is problematic in the Rambam's view, which is not the case. The tiltul isn't because of hotza'ah. But remember, we ended yesterday with saying that the Ravid holds that tiltul is all about the reason you can't carry in your house certain items that are muktzah are so that you don't end up thinking you can carry things into the public domain. We want to limit your carrying so that you limit all sorts of carrying. So therefore, if Beit Shammai is machmir and hotzah, of course he'll be machmir and tiltul, because tiltul is derived from hotzah. Okay, again, you'd have to figure out how the Rambam understands this line. We're going to leave that aside right now because we have a long daf to get through. Va'af Rav savar la lahad Rava. Rav also holds like Rava. Remember, Rava is the basic halachic opinion that we're going by, which is, right, klisha malachtola heter can be moved for three reasons. Gufo, mekomo, mechama letzel. Klisha melachto isur can be moved gufo mekomo, not mechama letzel, not if you want to protect it. So Rav also held like Rava. How do we know this? Da'amar Rav, mal aho shelo yiganev, zeu tiltul shelo letzorech ba'asur. If you want to carry your hoe and move it so that nobody steals it, this is another case of the chama letzel. It's not just that the sun ruins it, but someone might steal it. That's tiltul for no reason, and that's going to be forbidden. Again, he uses shalol letzorech, not the same way shalol letzorech in the Mishnah was used. Because shalol letzorech in the Mishnah, if you remember, was allowed. Tama shalol yiganev, it seems clear here only because it might get stolen. Aval letzorech gufo letzorech mukomo mutar. It sounds like he's saying only for that reason it can't be, but it can be if you need it for the space or for itself. Ini, is this really true? And now we're going to quote a story. Harav Kahana, ikla lebe Rav, he came to Rav's house. Ve'amar, and Rav said to him, Aitule shuta lekahana. He actually didn't say to Rav Kahana. He said to people in his house, he said, please bring him a netting that was used for trapping. So it's a klisha malachto le'isur, because you can't trap on Shabbat. Bring this netting for kahana to leitevale, so that he can sit on it. Now, again, this is classic. When the rabbi says something, what can we derive from here? La halacha. You always have to be careful if you're a rabbi or some sort of leader or teaching people something. You have to be very careful how you word things, because when they see you doing it, they're going to assume, right? There's that famous, whatever, I'm not going to get into stories today, but whatever, all these things, people hear the rabbi say something, they assume that they're doing it, for that reason specifically and trying to teach you something. So what do they assume? Lav lamemer, is he not trying to say, the davar shemalachto isur, which is this trap, litzorech gufo in, litzorech mekomo lo. You can only move it because he needed it to sit on. But if, let's say, he needed the space, wouldn't be allowed to move it. Isn't that what he was teaching us by saying that? Again, like I said, you have to be really careful with your words, because here they're jumping to conclusions, which would then disagree with Rava, because it would say, litzorech mekomo, you can't. So they say, lo, no, they're going to give two different options of what he could have meant. First, they say, maybe the story was a little different than what you thought. Hachi amar lehu. This is what he said. He didn't say move it so that he can sit on it, bring it to him so he could sit on it. What he said was, shkolu shota mikame kahana. Move this netting so that there's space for kahana to sit which means it's tzorech makomo. In other words, the house was very crowded. There wasn't a lot of space. Rav Kahana came in to learn. He needed some space. So he said, move it away so that he could sit there, which means that you can move it l'tzorech makomo. That's one option. This you also learned something about rabbis or leaders, that it could be that the trap was in the sun and Rav Kahana was sitting in the shade. And he wanted to say, move it to there for Kahana to sit on, so people didn't think that he was moving it from the shade to the sun, from the sun to the shade, and he was moving it to protect it. He wanted to say, I'm moving it for Rav Kahana, not Mechama L'Tzel. Maybe he was trying to teach the halacha that Mechama L'Tzel is forbidden. So either which way, we don't really end up with a problem. You can't necessarily learn from the story that he doesn't agree with Rav. Rav Meri Bar Rachel, Havaleahi Beis Saduta, he had all these mats, b'shimsha. They were sitting out in the sun. Like a mat for sleeping on, like a mattress. He comes before Rava and he says, Amar lahu ma'u l'tiltilune. Can I move these? So Amar lahu, Amar le, shari. He says, yeah, you can move them. Why did he assume he can move them? Well, you probably need them in your house. So he says, eat la'achrina. He says, but I have other ones in my house. So he says, chazu la'orchin. You see here, by the way, when you want to protect something, if we can find some need for it in your house, then you could say, oh, I'm moving it to get it into my house because I need it inside. That's our gufo. And then you can really it's a little bit of like an out, even though you really want to protect it, but if you have some sort of need for it. But he says, I don't have a need for it. So he says, but maybe guests will show up. So he says, I have for guests already. But what's the issue here? This is a klisha malachto laheter. Now, klisha malachto laheter, what do we learn? You can even move it mechama l'tzel. So why is he even going through all this? So he says, but I even have for guests. So I don't have any need to move this into my house other than that I want to protect it. Amar le. So he says back to him, Rava says to him, Galit adatach de kirabas sviralach. De lekuleam ashare ledidach asur. He says, by all your questions, you're showing me that you clearly hold like Rabba, who thinks that you can't move a klisha malachto laheter unless you have a need for it. Remember, you said mechama l'tzel, you can't. So he says, a fascinating line, since you're asking me all these questions, it's clear that you hold like Rabba. If you hold like Rabba, even though none of us do, you have to hold by him and you have to be machmir. So kind of like you're stuck. So you have to be careful when you choose opinions, right? Especially if they're not mainstream opinions. It's called Shavia anafshe chaticha d'isur. You're basically making it usher for yourself. Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rav, machbedot shel milta mutar l'taltalam b'Shabbat. Aval shel tmara lo. There were different types of brooms. There were brooms that were made of this soft material that they would use to clean items off the table. And then there were brooms made from the palm branches, which were used to clean the floor. Now, sweeping the table is allowed. Sweeping the floor is forbidden because you might flatten. Remember, you might flatten the ground. You might make holes or fill in the holes. And then if you fill in the holes, you're basically chayav for boneh, for building your house. So it's a tutolada boneh. You're not exactly building, but you're chayav. Remember, that's sweeping floors that are dirt floors, not like our floors. So he says, the ones that are used for the table, you can move, but the ones that are used for the floors, you can't. Rabbi Elazar Omer, af shel tmara, even the ones that are used for the floor, you can. So b'may askinan, for what purpose are you moving these brooms? If you're going to say tzorach gufo, you need it for something else, or you need it for the space. In other words, why would he say you can't move it for tmara? Rav already says, you can move l'tzorach gufo l'tzorach makomo. We already said he holds like Rava. But if you want to say it was to protect it, which would make sense, but what doesn't make sense? Lema Rabbi Elazar af shel tmara, right? He says shel tmara you can't move. So why can't you? Right? Af shel tmara. Sorry, he says af shel tmara you can. So 1 second, shel tmara lo, and he says even tmara you can. So now we're going to say af shel tmara. Why does he allow you to move it mechama l'tzel? It's a klisha malachto le'isur. How could he allow that? So what do they answer? La'olam mechama l'tzel. It is mechama l'tzel. How do we explain Rabbi Elazar? Ema v'chein amar Rabbi Elazar. Change it. It doesn't say not tmara. He says even tmara. Okay? He agrees with him. Okay? So basically, then you don't end up with a problem, and it must be the whole thing was mechama l'tzel. Okay, now the Mishnah starts off, a new Mishnah, Kol ha-kelim ha-nitalim b'Shabbat shivreihem nitalim imahen. We talked about broken kelim. If you have a broken utensil, you can move that also. Okay, a broken kli has uses. Remember, we talked about many times. They recycled a lot in those times. They didn't just throw things away. So a broken kli can be used also. As long as it's usable for some purpose. Shivrei areva, for example, if you have a broken bowl, you can use it as a cover for a barrel. Shivrei zchuchit, you can use a little jar. You can cover a jar with a shard of glass. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he disagrees. He said, they have to do something like they were used for originally. You can't change its purpose entirely. So what would be a good example? Shivrei areva, broken bowl, which generally you put dough in. Dough is like a thick, liquidy substance. Latzuk letocha mikpeh, you could put like a soup or some sort of thick thing inside. If it's big enough to fit some soup inside and you can use it, then you can use it, but not if you can't put something like that inside. B'shel zchuchit, since zchuchit was often used for glass jars for putting liquids, latzuk letochan shemen, if you could put a little oil in it, then you can use it. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Now there's going to be a big debate. What was their machloket about? When did the kli break? So he says, machloket shenishbaru me'erev Shabbat. Obviously, it must have broken according to him. The machloket is if it broke on erev Shabbat. And what's the machloket? Demar savar me'em melachtan in me'em melacha acheret lo umar savar filu me'em melacha acheret. Okay, that's just the machloket. Can it be used for the same, right? Once it breaks, do we view this as a kli only if it can be used for its original purpose or not? But it's clearly something that broke before Shabbat. Aval nishbaru b'Shabbat, but if it broke on Shabbat, clearly everyone would agree what? Divrei hakol mutarin. Why is it allowed? Ho'ilu muchanin al gabei avihen. Because when Shabbat came in, that's one of the main times where things are decided. Is it muktzah or not? Remember, part of muktzah is having something ready. So this kli before Shabbat, now, right, you have a bowl, and now you have a broken piece of a bowl. Well, the broken piece of a bowl was part of the bowl before it broke on Shabbat. So when Shabbat came in, the broken piece was seen as a part of this whole bowl. And since it wasn't broken then, it was all fine. Therefore, now when it breaks, it was already ready for use when Shabbat came in. So of course you can use it now. And there's no machloket. It doesn't have to be used for the same purpose. But we're going to have a big question with this. Motiv Rav Zutrai. He brings from the following source. Misikim b'kelim ve'emisikim b'shivrei kelim. We're moving back now to Yom Tov. On Yom Tov, what can you make a fire with? A utensil or even broken utensils. So again, shivrei kelim dinishbaru emat, right? When did these kelim break? Ilema dinishbaru me'erev Yom Tov. If they broke from before Yom Tov, well then eitzim ba'almaninu. Then they're just like any kind of wood that's ready for fire. If they were already ready before Shabbat for a fire, why would we say ein misikim? Sorry, did I say it right before? You can't use a broken kli to light a fire according to this source. So why can't you use a broken kli if it was broken before Shabbat? If it was broken before Shabbat, what's a broken kli used for? It can be used for burning. So it should be no different. It should be allowed. So therefore they say elalav b'yom tov. It must be a broke on Yom Tov. V'katana, and what does it say? Misikim b'kelim ve'emisikim b'shivrei kelim. Now why? Why can't you use it? Because now we're going to say the opposite of what we said before. When Shabbat came in, it was a kli. Now it's a broken kli. That's what we call nolad. It's something new. It wasn't a broken kli before Shabbat. So before Shabbat, it was a kli. Therefore, you can't light with a broken kli on Shabbat because it wasn't broken on Yom Tov, because it wasn't broken before Yom Tov. So now we're going to basically raise that question on our Mishnah. How can you say when Shabbat came in, it was ready? It was already part of a big bowl. Now it's broken. We don't view a broken piece as part of a big one. It's now something different. It's a whole new creature. It's now a broken piece. It could be used for something else. That's when their machloket must be. Their machloket must be when it breaks on Shabbat. Okay, so therefore they say itmar hach itmar. Must be what he said. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel machloket shenishbaru b'Shabbat. Now what's the big machloket? Mar savar muchanhu, umar savar noladhu. One holds it's, even though it's a broken kli, it's still ready from before Shabbat. And the other one says we view this as nolad. It's all a matter of how you view it. Do you view this as something new or do you view it as part of the whole? And that's their machloket. So if you say it can only be used for its original purpose, that's Rabbi Yehuda who says it was usable as a bowl before Shabbat. Now it has to be used in the same way because otherwise we're going to have to call it something new. So therefore you can only use it for that. But the other opinion says, no, it can be used for anything. It doesn't make a difference. We don't view that as nola. Aval me'erev Shabbat, but if it broke before Shabbat, divrei hakol mutarin. then everyone agrees you can use it for anything you want because it already became defined as something else before Shabbat. So your broken kli is now, when Shabbat comes in, it wasn't a bowl, it was a shard. A shard can be used to cover anything. It can be used for whatever you need it for. And therefore, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree that you can use it for anything you want. Okay, so now we're going to see 3 different brightot about this topic. And this is the big machloket about muktzah. Tanechada, there's 3 sources. You can't use kelim or shivrei kelim on Yom Tov. You can use whole kelim and broken kelim. And the other one says not, oh, sorry, I read the first one wrong, my mistake. The first one said misikim bekelim. You can use kelim, you just can't use broken. That was the one we saw before. And the last one says misikim lo bekelim v'lo b'shivrei kelim. So we have all 3 options. Either neither's allowed, both are allowed, or one is allowed, and not the shever kli. So what do they answer? Harabi Yehuda, Harabi Shimon, Harabi Nechemia. These are the 3 basic opinions of muktzah. Rabbi Nechemia holds an item can only be used, this is good review, for its designated purpose. So you can't burn kelim or shivrei kelim ever, because they're not meant for burning. So you can't burn those on Yom Tov. Obviously, on a regular day, you can, but not on Yom Tov. Rabbi Shimon is the opposite approach. He holds, this isn't nolad, it's fine. You can use anything for anything you want. And Rabbi Yehuda says, this is nolad. If it breaks, then it becomes nolad. It's something new. If it broke on Shabbat, it's going to be a problem. Rav Nachman, Hane Livne. We're going to have other things in muktzah. If you have bricks left over from building, Dishtayure mi binyana, if they're left over, you can use them for sitting on, no problem. Sharginu, but if you line them up and you pile them all up, vadayaksinu, you clearly set them aside to use the next time you build, and therefore you can't use them. Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, cheres ktana mutar l'taltel b'chatzer aval b'karmelit lo. If you have a little shard, you can carry it in your chatzer. Why? Because in your chatzer, chances are you have a lot of kelim around and you might need to cover something. But if you're out in the big space of the Carmelit, no, you're not going to really find kelim there, and therefore it's going to be muktzah there. And now we come up with this fascinating thing: something muktzah in one location is not going to be muktzah in a different location. For Rav Nachman Didei Amar, even though he quoted Shmuel saying this, he himself held afilu b'Carmelit. Even in a Carmelit, you might sometimes find a kli, so there you can still use it. Aval b'Reshut Rabim lo, but if you get to the public space, for sure not. The Rava Amar. Afilu b'Reshut Rabim. Rava says, even in Reshut Rabim, and here he goes, I'll explain his shita as we go through the story. Az Rava l'tameh, he goes according to his regular approach. The Rava ka'azal b'ristika de mechoza, either Ritka or Ristika, he was walking in the shuk in mechoza. Itva semane tina, his mesane tina, his shoes got full of dirt. Ata shame, his servant came, or his shamash. Shakal chasba b'kama chaperle. He took a piece of a shard and he started cleaning it in Reshut Rabim. So what do you see? He did it in Reshut Rabim. So Ramalu Rabbanan Kala, the rabbi started screaming at him, "What are you doing? You can't have a shard in Reshut Rabim." Interesting that they're screaming at Rava. Amar, he says to them like this, big, what do you say? Tochacha, he says to them like this, and then he says, Lo mistaya de lo gemire. It's bad enough you guys don't know enough. But migmar nami migamre, you're trying to also teach people the wrong thing. Ilu b'chatzer havai milo havachazi lechisuya be'mana. If I was in a chatzer, I could use this for something, and therefore it doesn't matter the location. It's a matter of does this have a use or does it not. It doesn't matter where I am. It doesn't matter that in Reshut Rabim I usually won't have a use for this. And look here and behold, lo and behold, I do have a use for it here. So there's your proof, and therefore he says, Hachanami chazi lididi. Therefore I can also carry it here. Okay, we'll stop here for today. Gone on long enough. We'll pick up from here tomorrow. Okay, have a great day, everybody.